Hello and welcome to Off the Grid Investing episode 5. I am here with CEO of Neighborhood Ventures, Jamison Manwaring. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'd love to talk about investing and wealth and all the goodies. So let's get started.
There's a lot of good things to talk about today because just a little lead in. One of my recent Airbnbs, I put it up and I thought that I put the price fairly high and I didn't know when I'd get it leased up, and it leased up in 2 hours for a month.
Oh, wow.
So we'll talk more about that, but I'm excited about that and to talk more about Airbnbs today.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely get to that later because that's kind of crazy to get leased up for a whole month on Airbnb. Usually it's 1 or 2 days. All right. So let's talk about saving and building wealth. And let's talk about how you can't really save your way to wealth. Maybe you can. You can save your way to riches, but you can't really save your way to wealth. So let's define what wealth is versus maybe being rich. What's the difference between, someone who's rich, someone who's wealthy? How do you save your way to wealth, or can you save your way to wealth?
Yeah, I was actually talking to a woman today who's in her 80s, late 80s, and she has saved her way her whole life. She's never really done any investing. So it's basically been sitting in a checking account. I think she has some cash in the mattress sort of thing as well. A lot of people actually do that.
Yeah.
And she's never really invested, and now she's in her 80s, and she's calling saying she wants to start having her money work for her. And I'm glad she's understanding that now. It's a little late, but she has some money. She's worked hard to save it, and now she is realizing she wants it to start getting a return. But it's really difficult to really grow your wealth if you're just putting it in a savings account, because it just doesn't grow. We have our $5,000 a year analysis. If you save that for 30 years in a savings account, you're going to have $156,000 in there. 150 of it you put in, 6,000 of it is your interest. So it's a very little amount of interest, where if you've invested that, you're going to have over $1 million. So it's really hard to build a lot of wealth if you're not investing.
Yeah. So if you can get started when you're 80, the people who are younger, you have so much opportunity your whole life to get started investing, and you can start investing at any point in your life. If you can start when you're 80, you can start when you're 50, let's say, right? So,
and this lady was really fun because she said she actually wouldn't tell me how old she was, but she told me she was older than my dad, who just turned 80. And I said, you're really young at heart, because she's looking to make her first investment ever.
That's crazy. I've never heard of an 80-year-old looking to make their first investment.
And she's excited about it. She read an article about our company is placing that investment, and it's the first one ever. And so, look, you can start whenever. She's a good example. She's not doing it because she's trying to build a big nest egg.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have that much longer to go. She said herself she'll probably be another 10 or 15 years if she gets over 100. But she wants to do it because she doesn't want her money just sitting there not growing. So she knows she's missing out on some opportunities.
Yeah. Is she retired or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So there's, investing, the broad general topic. And then there's what you like to do, which is investing in real estate, and what I want to do in the future, which is invest in real estate. And it can be hard to get started investing in real estate. There's these big purchase prices that you see, and it's intimidating and it's hard to get started. What's one of the best ways that you think that people can get started real estate investing today?
Yeah, and this actually goes back to what we were just saying. You actually have to save money to start investing in real estate, because you have to have money to buy assets. And you can play around with a few $1,000s if you're investing in crypto or some stocks or some ETFs, and that's kind of fun, but that's not going to give you the opportunity to buy an asset that's going to generate passive income. And I call it a good offense versus a good defense. So a good offense is when you can generate good income. And you can generate good income in so many fields. If you're good at what you do, you can be an artist, you can be a hairstylist, you can be a salesperson, you can be a small business owner, you can be an Uber driver. If you're good at what you do, you can make good income. And I say that's having a good offense. Score as many points as you can. So many people, though, once they have a good offense and they're scoring a lot of points, their defense is terrible, and they think now that they are generating this income, they need to spend it and increase their lifestyle. A lot of times they have family pressure, spousal pressure, peer pressure, and that's what leads them to spend their money, and they have a bad defense. So they might score 50 points, and they give up 50 points, and at the end of the year, they have nothing to show for it. What you have to do if you want to invest in real estate is you have to have a good offense, the best offense you can, and you have to have a really good defense in your early years. Don't think about spending money, think about investing money. And I love that analogy because it makes sense to me that in your early years, you have to be really good at both. Later on, you can spend some of that money, but you need to get a little bit of a nest egg to buy your first property.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether that's $20,000, that might do it in some markets. You might take over $100,000 in other markets.
Yeah. I'm working on my offense right now then, because I'm 19 years old. This is a time where I got to start earning money, and so I can invest later in life. And the sooner I start, hopefully I won't start when I'm 80 years old, but I'll start sooner than that. But
and in the meantime, you can invest in stuff like crowdfunding. What we do at Neighborhood Ventures with as little as $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you start putting that away and start learning those habits. And then if you want to buy a house to rent out or to Airbnb, you need to have a nest egg built up. So most of that comes with defense. You gotta work hard, you gotta hustle, make that income, and then have good defense and save as much of it as you can.
Yeah, I saw this really sad statistic the other day, and it said 86% of Americans today are living paycheck to paycheck, which means that means their offense is probably okay and their defense is terrible. Like, they're probably spending just as much money they're making. And I think it was over 50% of Americans are spending more money than they actually make every month.
That's not a surprise.
Yeah.
We're in a consumption culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's great for our economy because products are getting bought and sold all the time. People are traveling. They're going on vacation. They're spending all their money.
Mm-hmm.
And then a select few are saying, I need to put some away and I need to invest it. So this is definitely going against the grain. Most people, when they retire, don't have wealth.
Yeah.
Most people are going to continue to live a pretty frugal life, forced to live a pretty frugal life based with Social Security. Maybe they have a little bit put away. But if you want to maintain a good lifestyle throughout your retirement, you definitely can. You just have to be disciplined as you're earning.
It's kind of like that stimulus money the government gave out during COVID. It's like you can give all this money to these people, but some of these people don't really know what to do when they get a paycheck from their job, let alone when they get a free paycheck. And so they're like, oh, this is free money, right? And so, you're actually giving the money to these people who need it. They're unemployed, but in the reality, that's really going up into the people's pockets who have wealth and the people who actually own these assets that these people are paying for.
Yeah, we saw that with COVID when people got those stimulus checks. The money was used pretty quickly because people are like, oh, I got some funds. Most people spend that money quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw people who owned assets, who owned stocks, who owned rental properties, who owned who were the owners kind of at the top of the food chain, so to speak. They did really well during COVID. People who were living paycheck to paycheck just continued that, and then they had to get some support on top of that. So it's when those things happen, it just magnifies what is happening in general.
Yeah.
Because those events just make those things stand out even more.
Yeah. So you mentioned at the beginning, you said that you rented out your house on Airbnb and you managed to lease it out at a pretty high price in the first month. All 30 days of the first month. How did you manage to do that? And is it like a separate unit, or like is it a separate Airbnb property you bought? How does that work?
Yeah, and so in Arizona, there aren't that many triplexes and duplexes and fourplexes. There just aren't that many here. When I first moved here 10, 15 years ago, and I lived here for a few years, I started looking for a fourplex, and I didn't find that many. In other markets, those are more common. But what is common in Arizona are casitas. A lot of times these are used as were originally garages. They're detached, and then they get converted over to a guest house, mother-in-law suite, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And originally I had a friend. We did a house together, renovated it. We lived in the house. We had a 4-bedroom house. We lived in a room each. We rented out the other 2 bedrooms, and then we rented out the casita, which was generating its own income. And it's a brilliant way to house hack. And it's another alternative. And instead of having to buy a 3-plex or a duplex or a 4-plex, if you want to start down this path, if you can find a house that has a casita, in Arizona, it's also legal to rent that out on Airbnb. The governor signed a law in Arizona where Airbnbs are legal unless you're in an HOA and the HOA says no Airbnbs. My house isn't in an HOA, and I specifically bought a house that I really loved that had a casita, and I like it because my parents can stay in it. I can have guests come and stay in it. But when they're not staying in it, I have an Airbnb guest in it, and when I calculated what I wanted to spend on my mortgage, I was able to buy a little bit bigger house because I knew I'd be getting revenue from the casita, and I'm very happy to rent it out. Some people don't want to rent out a guest house on their own property. For me, I think I love it. You know, I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy having somebody there, and it just makes me feel like the property is being useful. And the person that's staying there now, he hasn't said a peep to me, and that's probably even better. He's just doing his own thing. And but yeah, I got it all renovated, or I bought the property renovated, got the property and the unit all furnished. So that's kind of the thing you have to do. You got to get lines up, you got to get a bed, you got to think through, if you're staying there, how would you want to what would you want when you'd stay there?
Yeah, because Airbnb is different than like a normal apartment, right? Like a normal apartment, you would just leave either like empty or maybe very minimal furniture.
Typically empty. Typically empty. Yeah.
But Airbnb is different, right?
Yeah. So for an Airbnb, you have to furnish it, and so most people have stayed in an Airbnb at this point, and there's a vast difference when it comes to the reviews that you get and the price you can charge with some of these little things that you can add. So having it well furnished. And what I mean by that is it needs to be kind of thoughtfully decorated. You know, if you put all of grandma's old hand-me-down furniture in there, that's what a lot of people do, and you don't get the good bang for the buck because you don't get good pictures. And so when people go book it, you're going to get less revenue from that. So you need to be a bit more thoughtful about it. It's worth spending a little bit of money and getting nice stuff in there. You need to have TV, you need to have good internet. And then add a Keurig, coffee maker. Add a microwave if you can. Add, if there's a kitchen capability, add the kitchen stuff. Have soap. Have nice, good smelling soap. Have good shampoo. Keep it super clean, and you'll do well. And if you're in a location where there's people, and I live in Central Phoenix, there's a lot of people coming to conferences here, coming to work here temporarily, other things. It will rent, and I prefer the Airbnb model because this person's going to come in, and he did do it for a month, and you're seeing more of that with Airbnb. But I like that because if you have a roommate move in there for a year and you have them sign a year lease, they're going to bring all their crap in there, and if they're messy, they're going to tear the place apart.
Yeah,
and they probably want their dog to come in there and their pet. And I have a dog, so I love my own dog, but I don't really want someone else bringing their dog to my guest house.
Yeah.
So I love the Airbnb model for that reason.
Yeah, I was looking at, my goal in the next year or so is to house hack. I want to buy a first kind of multifamily property or maybe even like a casita type property. And I was trying to calculate how much I could afford based off of my credit, how much I have saved up, my income. And I saw that they'll add 85% of the rental income that you would get from the other units to your personal income in order for you to qualify for a loan. And so I was looking at, can you add Airbnb income on an FHA loan? And you actually can. So if you calculate how much, the average vacancy rate of Airbnb, and then you factor in how much you're going to get each night for it, and you actually get about 25 to 50% more, like you said, in revenue, which then can help you qualify for a bigger loan if you want to get, more units, or you want to house hack like a 4-unit instead of a 2-unit or something. You could actually qualify for more since they use 85% of that income. That's why Airbnb is so great.
Yeah, and if it can help you get the loan, that's just gravy on top. For me, it just helps me offset costs. So if you can generate, call it $2,000 a month off of a casita, it's really easy to manage. Because it's right here on your own property. If somebody's hot water is not working, that probably means the hot water is not working to the whole property where you're staying. So it's easy to fix, it's easy to remedy. I have Airbnb properties that are more remote, and they're more work. But if it's on property, on site, it makes it very simple from that standpoint. And if you can get $2,000 a month, think of what that means. That's $24,000 a year. And it's the easiest money that you'll ever make. And you're making it because you own the asset. You're not making it because of per hour that you're having to put into Airbnb. You're making it because you bought that asset, you did it right, and now you're getting the passive income.
Yeah, that's so great. That's what's great about passive income is like you can calculate how much you make at work per hour. You can calculate how much you make doing this or that per hour. But with Airbnb, with real estate in general, Airbnb is great because you can get higher per hour. But with real estate in general, it's just so great because it's not like a per hour thing. If you hire a property manager, it's completely passive. Or if you invest in a company like Neighborhood Ventures, completely passive income that you don't have to work for. You can't even calculate the per hour cost of that, right? It's like, infinity return because you're not actually working for that.
That's right. And I think that some people are intimidated by doing Airbnb because it is more work. So let's say you have a full-time job. So I have a friend who's a pilot. He's looking to rent his house out. They're moving to another house, and they're going to keep their current house and rent it out. And I'm talking about with him potentially renting that out as an Airbnb instead of a long-term rental. And it is more work. So someone's going to have to be replying to those messages. You have to stay on it every day. And it's about 50% more in revenue per year. So if you calculate that through on your model, you can expect about 50% more in revenue. And then it costs you a little bit more as well. So typically 25% more than if you did it as a regular long-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
That's real dollars to some people. Like me, it's a no-brainer because I'm happy to do a little bit more work. I also prefer to have somebody in there short-term than long-term. But you do have to educate yourself if you're going to be an Airbnb person, and you have to acknowledge that it's going to take a little bit more time to manage that.
Yeah. So you run a very lucrative business here in Phoenix. So and you work a lot of hours a week. So how are you managing? Like, are you cleaning these units? Are you changing the sheets? Like, let's say you don't have a tenant that rents it for a month, which generally doesn't happen, right? It's usually like a few days, maybe a week or two. Are you actually going in and cleaning these units, or do you have someone doing this for you? Or?
Absolutely, I'm not cleaning units. I'm not good at cleaning.
Yeah.
Things have to be clean for me, but I am not good at cleaning, and I don't enjoy it.
So how do you manage the rental?
So you got to find a good cleaning person who's reliable, who can show up and do the job. And you can pass that cost on to the guest. So they're going to pay a nightly fee, and then they're going to pay a cleaning fee when they leave, and that's covered by the guest. So that's a beautiful thing. The other thing, the cleaning person comes in, they can look and make sure everything's intact. So if they get in there and they've broken the TV, they're going to report that back to me, and then I can submit a claim. It's not that common where somebody trashes it. I think that's a lot more common with a long-term tenant. When you come in and after they've been there for a year, now they've really trashed the place. The pool's not working now, and plumbing, the kitchen sink's not working. You don't really see that as much with Airbnbs. There'll always be some level of that. But have a good cleaning person. It doesn't take that much time. As a doctor or a pilot, and or a salesperson or a small business owner generating really good income, maybe this isn't the best place to put your time. Just rent it out long term. And there's still some work there, but you could also bring in a property manager to help you rent it out long term. And you can also bring in a property manager can help you do it as a short term rental. So for about 25%, you can bring in somebody, they'll manage the whole thing for you, and it's very hands off. So it depends on what you want to do and if it's worth it to you to spend that time. I do it because I like it. And since it's also on my property, I want to have the control of it.
So much opportunity with Airbnb, and it's probably just getting started. I think with the way that our economy and especially kind of blue collar workers is going right now, it's kind of like towards going to a renter's economy. And so most people in the future, I can't remember the statistic of how many people are renting right now, but in the future, I think people are projecting that it's going to be a lot more people renting than buying in the future. Because the usual American dream is, own your own house, make a high income, own your own house. But I think it's moving more towards people are actually wanting to rent because they're not committed to staying in one place for a long time, or they don't want to save up that money to buy a house, and they don't want to stay in one place, or people are working remotely now. So like, why do I have to be in this one place the rest of my life? So
no, and my generation and your generation are both more apt to have the flexibility and instead of buying a home and staying in it. They'd rather rent, they'd rather travel, go stay in other people's Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And yeah, you think about it, if you can, like my Airbnbs generally make about $2,000 a month per unit. So if you can get up to 10 units, you really have a business there. And I enjoy the business. You got to do what you enjoy. So you can try it out, see if you like it. There's definitely, as I mentioned, this person that rented my unit, I posted it, and within an hour, I had them booked for a month at a pretty high price.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of demand right now for Airbnbs and good locations that have good pictures and good renovations.
Yeah, and I think it's only going up from here in the future.